All right, guys, it's a late night, but I'm excited because we're talking about Lions football. Full disclaimer, I did my optimistic predictions. I think our quote for our floor was 7-9, so I was wrong. But I promise you next year I'll create another equally blindly optimistic prediction because you know what? Ignorance is bliss, guys. And even though every season I'm like a bunny rabbit jumping into a chainsaw, I will continue to believe that we are a winning season team. But jokes aside, I have all the games laid out here, obviously, other than week one, because I don't even want to talk about week one. That we're just going to set aside because I was just, they only had 4 wins and they beat us by 30 plus points. That was rough. But I wanted to review, looking over the season, and hot take why I think the Lions could potentially win the division next year. I'm going to throw that in because you know what? We need some positivity. So starting with it, I think the big theme with this, Matt Patricia did fix the run game. Just kind of an overview thing, which is great. That's great that the one thing he set out to do, he did do. And I'm not ready to wrap up his coaching career just yet. You never know what's going to happen. But it was very annoying early in the season how it was like June Caldwell games. We let teams just crush us and then tried to catch up in the end. And didn't feel like much was fixed. And it really did get better down the road. Like the Lions definitely did play better at the end of the season. And that's great. And I'm just hoping Matt Patricia constantly talked about how he was working on fundamentals. I'm hoping that maybe early in the season, people just weren't connecting with his message on fundamentals and it caused some issues. And then eventually his system kind of got clicking. Even though we had bigger wins early in the season, I do feel like I'd feel more comfortable knowing that the Lions that were losing at the end of the season are the real Lions than the ones in the beginning, because it almost feels like you take out that Patriots game and we lucked our way in the first 7 weeks to any wins that we got. And basically every loss was us just letting the other team destroy us. So that's just my season overview, and I'll go through why I think we can win the division as we go through, as we get to our division rivals. But just starting off, week one, week two is the same thing, and I talked about week three. I think, Matt Patricia might have been familiar with the Patriots. I remember week four, I thought it was actually a pretty good game because it was a shootout and the Cowboys just ended up with the ball last. I was actually not too sad with that loss because I thought it was the first game where we started to not just let teams run all over us in the first like 3 quarters. And then of course we beat the Packers, which is always a great time. And heading into bye week, we were 2-3. It wasn't too bad. But the 2 first weeks just kept hanging, and I think that's just something to keep thinking about. And obviously, the teams that we're beating, the Seahawks turned out to be a playoff team, so that loss is a little less bad because I think early in the season they were like 1-4 or something like that. So that was a pretty devastating loss. Dolphins obviously just melted down, and obviously these two losses. By this, we kind of knew what the Vikings and the Bears were. But looking down, we weren't, towards the end of the season, even though we did lose the majority of our games, our schedule, other than the Bills game, we didn't lose to anyone that I thought like we should have beaten per se. And we did beat the Panthers, who I think we should have lost to. But you know what? Like, I can talk about it. I can dissect each loss. At this point, we kind of knew, like I said, kind of going out of bye week, maybe around week 8 to 9, we kind of knew what the Lions were. Our playoff hopes did get crushed. I know week 14 we were talking about how we could still technically make the playoffs, but I think at that point we could have accepted that we knew where that was going. But you know what? Let's keep optimistic. I don't want to spend too much time on the season. I think that's my general note. Obviously, shutting out the Packers was freaking awesome. But here's why I think we could win the division. And this is not a guaranteed take. But we look at our division rivals. Yeah, let me start with top down. Because I think it'll be the easiest to go with. So, the Bears. The Bears obviously are a hot team. They're doing really well. But I think we got to always be wary of these lightning in a bottle teams. It seems like teams don't really have things clicking. They don't have a great quarterback. They have a few good elements, but a lot of weak spots on the roster. And in one season, they just click and they crush it, for a little while. And you then get this idea that that team is going to continually do well. But if you think at it, some of those teams that were last year that had that was aka the Vikings, who missed the playoffs this year, and even the Eagles, who barely made the playoffs this year. They seem to almost catch lightning in a bottle with kind of some subpar players. I mean, think about the Vikings. The Vikings got rid of Case Keenum and brought in Kirk Cousins, and their team got worse. So I think the Bears have potential to go the same way. They catch lightning in a bottle when people aren't used to that offense, but give it a year and teams will get to know them, and unless they're upgrading a lot, I could see them going the way of the Vikings, where they just kind of tank a little bit. Moving on to the Vikings are honestly the most scary team. They're the only team in our division of the three of them that we haven't beaten them a majority of the past 10 games. Fun fact, I believe we're 7-3 against the Packers, 7 wins and 3 losses in the past 10 games against the Packers, and I think also 7 wins and 3 losses against the Bears in the past 10. But I'm pretty sure the Vikings, it's reversed. We have 3 wins and 7 losses to them. I'm not positive. They have our number. They're not a team that chokes when they play us. All they need is to kind of like get back to working condition. They have the pieces there. They can now create a system that isn't lightning in a bottle, but like true talent. They have a great coach. I just really think this is a down year for them, and that's who I think probably our biggest rival may be in the upcoming season if we do actually have a chance if we do make a division push. And then lastly, we got the Packers, who are such a wild card because they themselves are wild. Even this season, they had a bad season, but never forget they were one game-winning drive, one accidental fumble away from beating the Rams. They just botched kicks when they played us the first time. The second time they played us, Aaron Rodgers clearly just didn't care because he left. They're in such a prime position to screw up against good teams because they have such weird team culture and team chemistry. I mean, without Aaron Rodgers, you see what they are. But the problem is if they get a coach that's able to figure it out, I can see they'll obviously be a great team. They have Aaron Rodgers. There's no way getting around that. But if they get a coach, if they hire a coach people have been trying to get Jim Harbaugh to leave Michigan. I don't think he'll leave Michigan, but example, say they get Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh is a super my way or the highway guy, and I think that works terribly with someone like Aaron Rodgers. I think you can't have a my way or the highway type coach with Aaron Rodgers. I think that's kind of what McCarthy was. And it worked sometimes, but it got in the way so much. I mean, Aaron Rodgers disliked McCarthy. And I think that's what limited them in so many seasons. If your quarterback doesn't believe in the plays you're calling and doesn't believe in your system, that's going to affect your team. I mean, anyone who's done sports knows how big the mental side to any sport is. And if your quarterback's going out there and just doesn't believe the team is in the best position to win, you're going to end up with losing to the Lions when you should be beating them, type of games. So I'm just saying, depends a lot on the coach, and I think there are coaches that can handle the situation well, but I think they bring in a my way or the highway coach, and I could see them just having a disappointing season again, maybe making the playoffs off wild card, but never reaching their potential. The most dangerous thing though is, and it's a slim chance, but maybe they'll find the perfect fit. The type of guy that's just going to give Rodgers all the freedom he wants and still, be strong enough as a coach to rein in everyone else, So that's my take. Obviously, though, we need to get better because if every other team doesn't improve, obviously we would still need to be better to win the division. But that is my take for the season. That's my review. Let me know what you guys think. That's my take.